Hi, good morning. Otis Toussaint here, coming from the Office of the Surgeon General here in Falls Church, Virginia. Today, I've got the privilege of having several command sergeants major from various regional health commands, plus the Medcom command sergeant major to join me on a discussion. Essentially, what we will be talking about is the new virtual reality that we're in Army medicine, and their regional health commands reactions, I should say, how they respond, and also how their new realities have now been formulated in this new virtual world that we're in. So we've got several sergeants major from different commands. We've got today Sergeant Major Charpentier, we've got Sergeant Major Huff, we've got Sergeant Major Neufville, and we've also got Sergeant Major Brunell. Sergeant Major Brunell is coming from the Regional Health Command there in Germany, and I'd like to have him hop on right now just to give his quick intro.
Hey, good morning, sir, and greetings from lovely Germany. It's a balmy 40 degrees here in October, but I'm glad to be with you today. And I am Command Sergeant Major Brunell. I'm from Regional Health Command Europe, the only fully forward deployed regional health command, in my opinion, the most diverse and best in the region. You know, best in Army medicine for sure. When you think excellence, you should think Regional Health Command Europe. When the SMA needed a representative for diversity and inclusion, he picked one of ours to represent all of United States Army Europe. And Staff Sergeant Hakeem Williams from the Dental Health Command answered the call, only one of four to sit with him. And he provided his insights. And, you know, I tell you, if you pick up a paper around here, you're going to see Dental Health Command soldiers doing great things. PFC Acevedo, Specialist Hill and Oliver picking up after a storm in Verona, Italy. Sergeant Major Adams representing USERA Women's Equality Day. You know, our Public Health Command Europe is the envy of all public health commands. We had the model for surveillance testing that the states are now just catching on to. And, you know, they're trying to imitate now our pooled surveillance strategy. And our Public Health Command showed how it's done. And Specialist Burton and our veterinary service folks take care of all of us over here, make sure our commissaries and our restaurants are safe. And let me tell you, our vet takes are pretty amazing as well at Public Health Command Europe. So it is Vet Tech Week. So happy Vet Tech Week to all of our 68 tangos around our Army. And let me tell you, I got to tell you, Fortress of Health and Medac Bavaria, stretching from MK in Romania all the way to Graf, Hohenfels, Ansbach, Stuttgart, and Garmisch, all the way down to the Marshall Centers. You know, that's a region all by themselves. And what needs to be said about Launchstool, the most important MTF, in my opinion, in our inventory when it comes to taking care of our deployed warriors. And what Launchstool means to Army medicine cannot be understated. So that's why I think Regional Health Command Europe is pretty dang important.
And I appreciate your words, Sergeant Major. Thank you for the quick intro. I'm going to give you your time. We've got a little bit of an order as far as you know, you going really in depth as far as what information you'd like to share. I know so we're waiting on a certain Sergeant Major, and he is going to join us fairly shortly. And the order of how I would like to have our discussion to go today, I've got a video coming from a Sergeant Major Booker. I've got also the discussion and comments coming from you, Sergeant Major Brunell. We've got comments and questions coming from Sergeant Major Neufville. We've got a video to be played from Sergeant Major Sprunger, and of course, Sergeant Major Charpentier. We've got final comments coming from you as well. So before we get the words from Sergeant Major Sergeant Major Howe, we've got you know, various things that are coming. So let me go ahead and prep at least the video for Sergeant Major Booker. And Sergeant Major Booker, let's go ahead and share that screen really fast. It's Sergeant Major Booker. Okay. And secondary screen. Actually, right here.
Hello, I'm Command Sergeant Major Rebecca Booker. I am proud to be a soldier and honored to be the Senior Enlisted Advisor of the largest region within the United States Army Medical Command. The soldiers and civilians of Atlantic Region provide the Army ready forces, sustain health services support, enforce health protection to enable readiness and conserve the fighting strength. As the Senior Enlisted Advisor for Atlantic Region, my primary responsibility is the readiness of the force, ensuring they are physically and emotionally ready and properly trained to fight and win our nation's wars and assist those in need during humanitarian missions at home and abroad. As we continue to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to stress the importance of getting back to training. One of MedCom's principles of training is to train while operating. We do this by reminding our soldiers that they are soldiers first, and our mission is to be able to shoot, move, and communicate, so we are able to get to the casualty on the battlefield. Our warfighters' lives depend on the technical and tactical skills that we provide to ensure their safe return home. The soldiers in our region deploy with some of the best trained, battle-tested units in the Army: 10th Mountain Division, 18th Airborne Corps, 3rd Infantry Division, and the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. As a result, our soldiers in Atlantic Region are changing the culture in MedCom and graduating from Airborne, Air Assault, and Ranger schools, earning their Expert Field Medical Badge, competing in both the Army Best Warrior competition and the Army Best Medic competition, attending technical schools such as the Paramedic course, DECM, Delayed Evacuation Casualty Management course, TC3, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, and the MedCom SMART program, Strategic Medical Asset Readiness Training, where they have the opportunity to train at multiple civilian hospitals around the country, gaining vast experience in trauma care in realistic environments. This training will pay dividends in the future of Army medicine and the Army. Our soldiers in Regional Health Command Atlantic lead from the front in all aspects of training. Our warfighters are truly in good hands. Thousands of dedicated and well-trained soldiers fill our formations and are ready to serve in whatever capacity the mission requires. Our team lives our motto, ready now, and proud to make Army medicine Army strong.
And we want to thank Sergeant Major Booker for her recorded words for our panel today. Next, I'd like to transition to Sergeant Major Brunell.
Hi, I'm Talita Crossland, Deputy Surgeon General and Deputy Commanding.
All right, I guess that's me this time.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir, Major.
Hey, good afternoon from Germany. How's everything? Back on the East Coast, I hope it's well. It's a little cold out here in Germany right now, but I am Command Sergeant Major Brunell from Regional Health Command Europe, and the only fully forward deployed Regional Health Command, and in my opinion, the most diverse and best region in Army medicine. So when you think of Regional Health Command Europe, you should think of excellence. You know, like the SMA when he called U.S. Army Europe for his diversity inclusion panel. You know, we offered Staff Sergeant Akeem Williams from Dental Health Command Europe only one of 4 soldiers selected for this honor, and he gave the SMA a lot of good insights from his personal perspective. And you know, other Dental Health Command soldiers are doing great things in the community, like PFC Acevedo and Specialist Hill and Oliver. They're helping clean up after a major storm in Verona, Italy. Or Sergeant Major Adams, representing during USA's Women's Equality Day and representing all Americans in an extremely positive way. You know, our Public Health Command is the model for surveillance testing during the COVID pandemic. And every other Public Health Command is trying to imitate our pooled surveillance strategy. You know, our Public Health showed everyone how it's done. But that's not all. Specialist Burton and our veterinary food inspection specialists continue to take care of all of Europe by ensuring our commissaries and restaurants are fully stocked and safe, while her teammates at veterinary clinics are taking care of some of the most special family members, our pets. And our vet techs are pretty amazing as well. And happy Vet Tech Weeks to all of the 68 tangos in our Army. And let's not forget about Medac Bavaria. You know, they start, when you think of Medac Bavaria, you think something small, but I tell you, they're a region into themselves. They start in MK in Romania, including Grafenwöhr and Hohenfels, Ansbach, Stuttgart, and now they're all the way down in Garmisch again in the Marshall Center. You know, they got almost as much area as the region by themselves. And they're all wrapped up in a staff of a small medac, so they are doing some great things. And yet they still have time to train. You know, three of the 12 region EFMBs came from Medac Bavaria, and their best warrior candidate is going to be hard to beat in their upcoming competition. And then of course there's the big boy on the block, if you will. There's launch duel, and I think probably one of the most important MTFs in our inventory when it comes to take care of our deployed warriors. You know, what launch duel means to Army medicine cannot be understated, and their staff of professionals continues to impress. You can't spell medical readiness without LRMC. Go ahead, you can't. But many of you don't know that they're also responsible for Vicenza Health Clinic in Italy and also 2 facilities in Belgium. So they got a big old region into themselves as well, taking care of our NATO partners. And these 2 facilities, you know, in Italy and Belgium mean the world to their commands, and they're helping leading the fight against COVID-19. So it's pretty easy to see why Regional Health Command Europe is a shining star in outside Army medicine. And yet, through all this, I can guarantee that our patients are receiving safe, high-quality health care when they walk through our doors in all of our facilities. So that's Regional Health Command Europe in a nutshell, sir.
Awesome. So let's, we've got a couple questions for Regional Health Command Europe, if you don't mind sharing your answers to those, Sergeant Major. Looking forward to hearing your answers. Let's go ahead and put on the big panel with all of our sergeants major that's on here. The first question, Sergeant Major, is, and this is directly to Sergeant Major Brunell, what's unique about dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic in an overseas environment?
Well, I think one of the most unique challenges is dealing with the host nations. You know, whether that's Germany, Belgium, Italy, Turkey, or the UK, they get a big vote in how we react to the pandemic. So if they say lock down, we lock down. You know, one of the first epicenters of the pandemic in Europe was not too far from Vicenza, Italy. And so the partnership of our host nations is essential. And I think one of the unique things you'll notice, if any soldier, doesn't matter who, you land in Ramstein, even with family, without, single, you're going into a 14-day hard ROM. And so it puts some extra challenges on our sponsorship programs, but, you know, our soldiers are really kicking butt when it comes to that. And so we've got a Rhine Ordnance Barracks reception center that can house single soldiers and make sure that they go through their 14 days. People are bringing them food. They're getting care of their needs and staying away from the boredom with Wi-Fi and other type of games. Travel restrictions too throughout the AOR, they fluctuate and change. Every country is slightly different. And so it makes a challenge for our public health and dental folks as they try to travel around to their respective clinics. Belgium says it's a no-go. And I've been here for about 5 months now and still haven't been able to visit the clinics up there because if we did, we'd have to come back and sit in a hard round for 14 days. I think something else too is, our direct cooperation and coordination with DODS schools. Unlike CONUS, we are their medical support. So when DODS needs assistance in figuring out how to keep our students safe, they come straight to us. And so that's kind of it's a unique challenge. That pretty much sums it up, sir.
As a Sergeant Major, I've got to say, as a former employee recently there in Germany, I know of just how difficult it can be transitioning from stateside over to European side. So, knowing that your health command is taking the steps to assist families with their transitionary issues that may be coming up, I got to say you're doing a great service to lessen the anxiety that a lot of folks may have coming over there. So thank you for that response. Sergeant Major, the next question that I've got for you is, do soldiers in Europe have the same training opportunities as their stateside counterparts?
That's a hard question. I think yes and no. We don't have air assault. We don't have airborne, at least permanently stationed here. Sometimes there's some rotational things, but what we do have, we build ourselves or with partnership with the 30th Medical Brigade when it comes to medical training, and so it forces us to create lasting partnerships, and it's made it good. We just completed an expert field medical badge. We had about 125 total candidates. We were planning on doing 250, but COVID had other ideas, and 179 support personnel. We created a training bubble, and 26 candidates went into from Regional Health Command Europe, and we got a total of 27 badges, 11 from our command. So I think that's pretty good. So maybe we don't have some of the sexier schools, but what we do is pretty good. Launch Duel just put out a International Combat Lifesaver course and invited in some of our NATO partners to show how we do it. And it's interesting to see the soldiers' faces that, it doesn't matter what country you're serving, the life-saving steps are similar across the board. And so, when you see that in the soldiers' eyes, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I think that was a yes and a no. Some things are better in the States, but our opportunities are pretty cool as well.
I would definitely agree with you. Everyone is trying to find a sense of normalcy, especially in this new reality that we're in. But I believe that your team is adjusting well. And what caught my attention is hearing that international health competition that you said that Launch Duel is offering. Launch Duel always got great training there, so commend you for that. And of course, my last question for you, Sergeant Major, is what are the advantages to being an overseas environment versus stateside when it comes to the readiness of our medical forces?
Well, I think you hit it on just a second ago. I think our international partnerships and interoperability training throughout the AUSA are definitely an advantage to keeping our forces already learning from our NATO partners, and side by side is a big advantage here in Europe. And when it comes to morale and team building, it's kind of like a deployment. When you're over here in Europe, you don't have a lot of outside distractors, and so I think we're able to train a little bit better as more cohesive teams, and it just brings an advantage on everything, and let's not forget about, LARMC, when every injured soldier coming out of the theaters from the previous wars have been evacuated through Launch Duel. So one could argue that they're seeing more trauma than most of our medical centers. And so that's great for the doctors, nurses, and techs and medics that use what they learn here at Launch Duel to save lives on the battlefield. So I think there are some advantages over here versus stateside.
Awesome. Sergeant Major, well, I really appreciate your candor and your telling us exactly how you feel about the realities of being trained in the States versus trained in Europe, the opportunities for training, and of course, just the reality of living essentially in Europe versus living here in the US. So I want to thank you for your answers, Sergeant Major.
No, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Roger. And so we've got transitioning now next, we've got Sergeant Major Neufville, and looking forward to hearing from him. Sergeant Major Neufville, you're up. Oh, hold on. Let me unmute him real fast. Go ahead, Sergeant Major.
Good morning, Mr. Toussaint, fellow Sergeants Major, and those watching in virtual land. I'm Command Sergeant Major Abuoh Neufville, and I am honored to represent the Regional Health Command Pacific here today at the virtual forum. I'm not going to list all the accomplishments of this very diverse organization called the Regional Health Command Pacific, but I'll tell you, during the COVID pandemic, we have definitely defined what Army medicine looks like in a very geographically diverse location. Regional Health Command Pacific spans over 4,500 miles from Alaska all the way to Japan, encompasses over 14 direct reporting units and over 14,000 soldiers and DA civilians working to deliver world-class healthcare to our beneficiaries, and also prepare a ready medical force ready to deploy and provide care to our soldiers and warfighters forward. As I mentioned, we are a very diverse unit encompassing medical, dental, public health, and our veterinary units, located in Alaska, California, Hawaii, Japan, and Washington State. A couple of the accomplishments that our soldiers have had during this pandemic, I'll tell you, we had the representative for the Regional Health Command Pacific Best Warrior compete at the U.S. Army Pacific level and actually win and represent the U.S. Army Pacific during the recently held Army Best Warrior competition. We've also, in the past couple of months, had the representative selected by the Army as the USO the Army's representative for the U.S. Old Service Member of the Year. So we had 2 of our soldiers selected to do that. In addition to that, the 8th Army in Korea representative for Best Warrior came from the Regional Health Command Pacific units, and also Japan's soldier and NCO officer and NCO represented the Regional Health Command Pacific through the Best Warrior. Again, I'm honored to be here today representing the soldiers and civilians of this very, very powerful, diverse unit. And I'm excited to hear whatever questions you have for me.
Thank you very much for your introductory comments, Sergeant Major Neufville. And so we've got a couple questions coming in, and I'd like to present the first question to you. So the first question is, we've heard a lot about discrimination in the Army and the other military services. What are some things that you're doing in the region to improve the opportunities for soldiers?
That's a very good question. I don't think the Army is a representation of our nation as a whole. So it's not an Army problem, discrimination, but as we as a nation have these difficult engagements and conversations, the Army as a microcosm of a nation has leaned forward and been proactive in having these discussions. So I won't per se say that we have discrimination in the Army in the sense of as a widespread issue, but we do have to account for it. And also in doing that, the Surgeon General and the MEDCOM's Command Sergeant Major, the Project Inclusion has definitely laid the groundwork for getting to know one another. So, you know, last year, the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Secretary of the Army and Sergeant Major of the Army published the People's Strategy over a year ago. And when it harkens back to getting to know one another, whether you're a soldier, civilian, contractor, or family member, getting to know your people for what they are and understanding differences and values that they bring to whatever mission we have. So in doing so, we have been very proactive, ensuring that people got to know one another. And our diversity, once realized, can prove to be our strength. So we're having these difficult conversations from the command level all the way down to the section level. Commanders and command sergeants major have led the way by starting either at a town hall initially and then taking it to a smaller group, and also providing a forum for service members and other staff members to go ahead and speak about whatever issues they have encountered as we go through this defining time in our nation's history. So holding people accountable that are not high performers and do not fully account to what we hold as our values of inclusion. When that is brought up and proven, holding them accountable and ensuring that we always there is no room for anyone to be treated without dignity and respect. And then lastly, I'll tell you, the Army has trust. The trust is defined as a bedrock of our profession. And that trust is between soldiers and soldier to soldier, the soldier and the Army, and also the soldier's family and the Army. So that trust has to be there. I think that's the key, knowing that this person, whether they are active duty or a DA civilian, will have your back in a tough spot. And that's what we have gotten down to. And I think COVID has proven that we must decentrally focus on people and allow them to execute their mission in organized fashion. So we have had programs on whether it's a weekly town hall or virtually. You know, with COVID, we were leveraging the Microsoft Teams and having these group chats. Every command has a framework for group discussions and also reporting. So those formats have always been in place. We are just going back and reiterating them.
Excellent, excellent. Sergeant Major, appreciate your answer on the first question. As someone who had a frank conversation and also hosted a couple of conversations with our Sergeant Major of the Army and our Chief of Staff, I definitely support and celebrate these discussions that we're having based on the inclusion that's been initiated by our Lieutenant General Dingle and our Sergeant Major Huff. The next question for you, Sergeant Major, is we've heard a lot about the Sergeant Major of the Army's This Is My Squad initiative. Could you tell us some of the things that you're doing in RHCP to implement it?
Yes, sir. So those two, that your second question links with the first. Again, This Is My Squad. The initiative debuted by the Sergeant Major of the Army last year when he came in his tenure. It emphasizes positive ownership. Each individual, everyone has a squad. I listened to the Sergeant Major of the Army yesterday. He spoke about that. Many of us, as we get to a senior level, don't see ourselves as belonging to the prototypical squad as you would have had when you were a second lieutenant or private, but we all have 3 to 5 people that we work with on a daily basis. So if you look at that and we come together, if 3 to 5 folks come together and there's a leader in the middle, someone's leading there and holding accountable and taking care of one another, we can get after the major problems that face our military today, or our nation, even with the discriminatory behavior or challenges that we're having. So that focuses on getting to know one another, and it forms that golden triangle with that leader in the middle. What we're doing is, and this has been kind of emphasized with the pandemic, is we've had to go ahead and have smaller groups operating. So I'll tell you, during the pandemic, a lot of training, you still had to do PT, you still had to do all the other training you did, but whereas before you might have done it in a larger group, we have to be socially distant. So that could be in the form of your squad doing things together, training for EFMB, training for Best Warrior, doing your competency training, whatever that is. We all know that the large groups we used to train together, and it was more economical and more feasible to do. Those are not permitted anymore. So that squad, that 5 to 7 people together getting after whatever mission they have, has to be the way we go. So that positive ownership between the squad leader and others within the squad is key. And that's what we have been doing, whether it's during the healthcare delivery that we perform as our daily missions, but everything else that we do as far as readiness, that squad is pivotal to getting after.
Thank you very much for your answer, Sergeant Major. And let's just transition now into the Army fitness test. The next question is, the Army Combat Fitness Test became the official PT test on October 1st. Could you tell us some things that's being done in your region to make soldiers trained and prepared for that test?
Yes, sir. So a little over 14 months ago, we all knew the Army Combat Fitness Test, the ACFT, was coming. And that was a focus of a lot of my town halls and discussion with soldiers. I would always ask them, what did they think? And what, we found was there were a lot of myths out there about what this test was. Most people had not taken it yet. They just heard it was coming or heard secondhand about it. So we focused over a year ago, prior to going into diagnostic phase, pre-COVID, we focused on education and training. That education was just letting the force know the reasons why the Army and senior leaders out there came out with the Army Combat Fitness Test. Why were we changing from the APFT that we had over 40 years? Letting them understand why that was, and then educating them on the test. And then we also started the Army Combat Fitness Test Train Up. Every organization within the Regional Health Command Pacific had a train up program. I'll tell you, some of the units actually led the way in their locations for that train up. Every soldier got the opportunity to attend Army Combat Fitness training. And there was a huge difference in those that had actually, once they went out there and saw what that test encompassed, that it changed. that outlook changed. And I'll tell you that challenge, most every soldier has taken that and began to run with it. Prior to the COVID pandemic in February, we were at about 80% passing on the diagnostic Army combat fitness test. And in smaller groups, leading back to your last questions, doing it at squad level currently, doing the Army combat fitness test, are still getting after this, training and conducting the, getting after the Army combat fitness test. So we have all the equipment that we needed. We've been fielded, and we are getting after starting up our diagnostic testing as we speak. But just to answer your question, I think a lot of the concerns with the ACFT were just understanding what the test was for, explaining why it was relevant to changing, and explaining the techniques needed. And also in there, letting the soldiers understand that, yes, you look at the ACFT, there's a lot of equipment, but you don't need every single equipment that is used for the test to train them for it. So educating them on what they could do at home or in a gym to go ahead and prepare for the test. The test is just the outcome of months and months of training. So once they got that, the motivation level and understanding went up. It's not easy, but definitely to know what they're doing and excited to do it.
More than anything, training is super important. It's important to train as well. So our next question, that being the next question, the best competition. So this month, second, Regional Command Pacific conducts its annual best medic competition. What are these competitions? Why are these competitions important for soldier readiness?
Yes, sir. The best warrior, best medic, those competitions, I'll tell you, this is a very good question. Why do we do it first? I would say, going back to your what you're asking, we do it because it's a means to train. Challenging training always puts a soldier at the echelon above his or her adversaries when faced in combat. So this was one of those that we thought we definitely thought about. Do you do a best medic? Do you do a best warrior during a worldwide pandemic? But we as an Army always must be ready to deploy, engage, and defend this nation wherever we're called to do so. The skills and the competencies involved in the best medic or the best warrior are those skills, whether they're tactical or technical, that will allow a soldier to have that edge on the battlefield. Now, if you watched yesterday, you know the Sergeant Major, the Army selected or the Army announced the best warrior and best NCO yesterday and the candidates. One of those soldiers was actually a medic out of Regional Health Command Atlantic. So that tells you how important it is. You have a 68 whiskey specialist at the time when we boarded him that has been selected from Army-wide as the best warrior. So we must all have a superior level, whether it's our technical skills as a 68 whiskey, X-ray, Mike, Juliet, you name it. Those technical skills are what we do in our job, but we must have the tactical survivability in order to truly, truly be effective in any environment we are asked and directed to go into. So that's the imperative of why we do these trainings, and the winner is just the mere outcome of months and months of challenging training. You know, most of us that join the Army are of a certain personality and we want to be challenged. So I would tell you it is very, very important, while accounting for the social distancing and other precautions that are in place with the COVID pandemic. But as soldiers, we must always maintain that edge because the enemy does get a vote. So doing competitions and either the best warrior, best medic, or even the expert field medical badge, those things must go on because that's an opportunity for soldiers to hone those skills in a very, very defined environment over a period of time. So that's why we've chosen to do it while accounting for all the precautions that are required to ensure safety and health during a pandemic.
Thank you for your answer, Sergeant Major. I think I can probably vouch for, I mean, if we've got professional athletes who could go out and perform competitions, we can have professional soldiers go out and perform their competitions as well. So I'm a huge advocate for continually training as we fight, continually, performing even in our new reality, our new COVID-19 reality. And to transition into our, final question for you, Sergeant Major, we've got the last question being, what are some of the strategies being employed across Regional Health Command Pacific that have contributed to the fight against COVID-19?
That's a great question, and I will tell you, the units within the Regional Health Command Pacific, whether it's the public health units, to medical, to veterinary, every unit since the past 7 or 8 months with the COVID-19 pandemic has been on the front line, providing healthcare and other support nationally. We have our soldiers, wherever the hotspots were, that went to South Korea at the initial outbreak to support our units there and our soldiers and families members on the peninsula when COVID first raised its head. We had soldiers deployed to New York to provide that assistance a couple of months ago. Washington State, where I am currently, we have a lot of our units here, but we also had critical specialties come from across the Regional Health Command Pacific to go ahead and assist, whether it's from the diagnostic testing to the provision of healthcare delivery when required. So we have, you name it, we have gone there. Not to forget Guam. Guam was another mission in the Pacific that we had soldiers deployed to. So when it came to healthcare delivery, we have led the way, showing what we do on a daily basis. Some of it was a defined or directed mission, but we've gotten after it. We also have expanded our virtual medical and behavioral health care. We're conducting the majority of our encounters now virtually. That's what when COVID-19 raised its head, the fear was that the readiness of the force would drop dramatically. It did not. What we're doing now is redefining how we provide that care while accounting for the restrictions of COVID. We've also expanded virtual medicine, behavioral care, the diagnostic testing. Madigan Army Medical Center was one of the first medical centers in the Army to stand up diagnostic testing during the initial days of the outbreak here in Washington State. Madigan Army Medical Center, Tripler Army Medical Center are one of the few hospitals nationally that have been selected to participate in the convalescent plasma treatment as a modality. And they're doing that as a means of treating COVID-19. We've also provided subject matter experts to go out and whether it's in support of our civil authorities or just give them information on what we see. The key to the Regional Health Command Pacific, as we are a very diverse organization, as I mentioned, spanning over 4,500 miles, is our ability to expand. Very, very, given our locations, if you're in Hawaii or you're in Japan or Alaska, you have to be on the forward edge of being able to sustain yourself. And that's what these organizations have done. So to answer your question, I'll tell you, we have set the standard for the diagnostic testing and provision of healthcare as needed, and the ability to expand when required to. Those are the key things that we have done and defined within the COVID pandemic.
Awesome. So, Sergeant Major Neufville, I really appreciate the answers and the responses to some of the questions sent our way for you in discussing our Regional Health Command Pacific's response to our new reality, the new training opportunities for soldiers, keeping them strong, keeping them fit, and of course, our COVID-19 responses. And I want to say thank you for participating in our discussion. Who I'd like to transition to is Sergeant Major Sprunger. We've got a video from Sergeant Major Sprunger. I hope that we all enjoy this video, and here we go.
Hello, I'm Command Sergeant Major Tim Sprunger from Regional Health Command Central. I want to thank everyone for attending today's virtual panel for AUSA. I'm going to take a few moments during this pre-recorded video and thank you to our team for putting this together. I am somewhere flying around the United States. I'm going to do battlefield circulation, so I apologize for not being in person virtually for the panel. I'm going to take a few moments to discuss a few topics that I think are very important to the AMED today. And it kind of ties in with the Army priorities of people first. And this could also be tied to the initiative of This Is My Squad. Now, if you're not familiar with This Is My Squad, it is an initiative to take ownership of EO, EEO, SHARP, suicide awareness and training within your small team, group, squad, or clinic for that matter. Not everyone is in a traditional squad, so you have to think about that a little loosely and see how it applies to your particular scenario. But if we take a look at This Is My Squad and we look at training, for instance, there are several things that we should be doing within our MTFs, because our MTFs are an exceptional training platform, and we should be producing the best training inside these well-lit, temperature-controlled, clean facilities that are packed with healthcare professionals. And I think that sometimes we don't necessarily do that as well as we ought to. Now, we can also look at field training like Expert Field Medical Badge. Expert Field Medical Badge is very important, as are other functional courses that produce ASIs and special skill badges. But the Expert Field Medical Badge is known across the Army, right? Our combat arms and combat service support, or NCOs and officers across the Army know what the EFMB is. And when you walk into a room with that badge on, they know what you have gone through and that you're a credible source. But they also notice when you walk into the room and you don't have one. That leads to other functional courses. When you take a look at airborne, air assault, also, once again, Ranger, Sapper, those things provide exceptional leadership skills and experiences that our soldiers, officer, enlisted, can bring to the table and provide to their soldiers throughout our institutions. We can also take a look at other training, ICTL training, tactical combat casualty care, casualty response training for leaders. Those are directly related to healthcare, and if we're not providing the appropriate resources to train our soldiers, whether they be officer or enlisted, to the proper level, then frankly we're just doing it wrong. We need to relook how we're doing our training in our facilities and ensure that we're providing the highest level of training possible. Our providers should be looking at our enlisted soldiers as training opportunities. They should be looking at training those enlisted soldiers, whether they be medics, occupational therapy technicians, lab technicians, pharmacy technicians, radiology technicians, but training them as a privilege, because one day those soldiers may not be in the fixed facility. They may be out in the field with a tactical organization where that combat medic is now responsible for 30 soldiers on their own, soldiers that he or she is very good friends with. We need to train them well in our fixed facilities where everything is controlled. So when they're out on the battlefield where things are not controlled, that they know how to react. And they're not making things up on their own as they go, because they will if they don't have the proper training. I think all of these things are very important. I truly wish that I was there to field questions on this topic. But once again, unfortunately, that isn't the case. And once again, thank you to our team from Regional Health Command Central for putting this recording together. Army medicine is Army strong.
And thank you to Sergeant Major Sprunger for his video and his presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to send a video and present your information for us. And of course, last but not least, I'd like to transition now to our Sergeant Major Charpentier. We're going to talk to him in regards to his information that he has, updates regarding EFMB and Army training. Sergeant Major.
Hey, good morning, sir, team, everyone around the globe tuning in for this. So, Clark Charpentier here from the home of Army medicine at Joint Base San Antonio, the Medical Center of Excellence. Some of you may previously know it as the AMED Center in school, but last year we transitioned to the Medical Center of Excellence in order to align with the rest of the Army Centers of Excellence. So, first, I'd like to say thanks to Sergeant Major Huff for extending the invitation to participate in this event, and as a manner I can serve as a bridge between Army Medical Command and the Training and Doctrine Command, which the Medical Center of Excellence now falls under as a direct report. So overall, our mission nests extremely well with enabling the success of the regions as our soldiers move forward, because here at the Medical Center of Excellence, we envision, design, train, educate, and inspire the world's premier medical force to enable readiness and strengthen America's Army. So with that, our throughput of initial entry soldiers is about 18,000 for enlisted and officers, and our annual throughput of soldiers and students is about 37,000. During COVID, we've transitioned a lot to virtual platforms and been able to capitalize on the technology that is being used across our Army and across our world day to continue to ensure that our medical personnel are the best trained and prepared to step forward into those operational units and into the other aspects of Army medicine. So, Expert Field Medical Badge. And it was mentioned by a few of my esteemed colleagues earlier as being the portrait of excellence, the indicator of what a professional medic is. And when we say medic, this extends to all of our medical MOSs and AOCs, whether it's enlisted or officers. And just by having that badge on your chest when you walk into a room does breed instant credibility as a medical professional. So as we look back, we have to review history a little bit to look at where we're heading. And for those who don't know, the Expert Field Medical Badge has been around since 1965. So we're rapidly approaching the 55th year of its inception. And over those years, it has changed more in order to stay current, to stay pertinent to what's happening in world events. So as we look at where we're heading, we don't need to change the badge for the sake of changing. What we need to do is modernize and ensure that we are keeping pace with America's Army and the requirements that our medics are going to face on the battlefields of today and tomorrow. So as we are embarking upon complete analysis and regulatory review of the expert field medical badge. Our intent is to ensure that rigor remains in the testing process, but also to ensure that we are moving from an industrial age to an information age, as the Chief of Staff of the Army often refers. And then also, we want to make sure that we're not in any way, shape, form, or fashion diminishing the importance of the badge or the prestige associated with the badge. So just a few things that we are looking at and conducting just to provide some background information for anyone who is listening today. So our governing regulation for the expert field medical badge is the AMED Center and School HR COE pamphlet 350-10. So one of the things that we're going to do with the future update, the soon to be updated, is to actually align the name appropriately with the Medical Center of Excellence. And it will still remain as a pamphlet 350-10, but it will have updated information standards and all of the requirements associated with the conduct and earning of the badge. So what I would encourage everyone is to really think about this badge is a mark of our professional excellence. So as we move forward, we're trying to look at ways to align with the other professional excellence badges that are across the Army. So working with the Infantry Center and also the Center for Initial Military Training to work towards alignment with the Expert Infantry Badge and Expert Soldier Badge as a method for commanders to be able to provide training, to be able to provide evaluation simultaneously at a site to where resources can be compiled and our commanders have the ability to potentially conduct the testing even more often, not as a standalone training and evaluation event, but something that is also embedded in other expert badge testing opportunities. So some of the pilots that we're working on right now, looking at the actual validation. For those that have been around the Army for a while and experienced in the expert field medical badge test process, you know that someone from the Center of Excellence, from the Test Control Office of the Expert Field Medical Badge, would be on site throughout the duration of the setup, validation, and testing part of the actual test. So as we move forward, looking at the information age and figuring out how can we best support and what can we do in the parameters of travel restrictions and COVID, we're actually looking at a multitude of ways to be able to conduct virtual validation, on-site validation from other entities, other medical command entities that are stationed at the installation camp posts and stations. And then also looking at utilizing our technological advantages to be able to reduce the physical requirement for someone from the test control office to be physically at the location. So pilots are occurring with that right now. And as these things continue to morph, each one is a learning opportunity and it provides exposure for our team to be able to decide what's working and what do we need to maybe adjust just a little bit for future iterations. Additionally to that, we are looking at ways to modernize the written examination portion of the Expert Field Medical Badge test. For those that have participated, know that it was a hard copy paper written exam since the inception. The earliest records we have of the written exam was dating back to 1967. But as we move forward, we found that in the schoolhouse environment, we've been able to deliver information content and testing by virtual means or by electronic internet connectivity. So we're looking at modernizing, bringing the test into the 21st century and looking at opportunities for actually having a electronic test delivery method. So another pilot that we're working on right now. Additionally to that, I mentioned earlier, co-execution with ESB and EIB. So as we look at the resources, knowing that each of these tests require resources of land, personnel, time, and equipment, we're trying to align better with our partners across the Army to ensure that commanders have maximum opportunities to be able to execute more often, to where more soldiers have the opportunity to compete for and earn the badge. We are currently planning for a pilot coordinated effort with the ESB, with 18th Airborne Corps, to execute next month, to be able to move forward and determine the feasibility and the opportunities that we can capitalize on those resources and be able to provide more opportunities. So additionally, some of you may have seen on the EFME website that we have suggested study materials. What I will say with the study materials, they are not limited to the actual test site or to our website. What I would encourage any potential candidate, use this as a launching point. Now, other websites that say they have specific tests for the expert field medical badge, they may be a good supporting opportunity, but they are not, I will say again, they are not the authority for the test, nor is our example study guide on the Med COE's website, the actual definitive study guide. I encourage everyone who is a potential candidate to take a look in the regulatory guidance that is also mentioned on our website, because it will help you to be successful. Another pilot that we're actually looking at, excuse me, another pilot we're actually looking at is a final culminating event. So most people know that the 12-mile road march was the final event for earning the expert field medical badge. But what good does it do to have a medic arrive at a patient or at an objective and be so exhausted they can't do anything else? So in order to test an individual's ability, we are looking at adding one more task after completion of the road march. Much aligned with the ESB, the opportunity for a candidate to be able to disassemble, reassemble, and perform a functions check of their individual weapon system. So for those candidates who are physically exhausted, they'll still have to do something at the end of the FMB. So these are just a few of the pilots that we're looking at, but we are doing a top to bottom review of the expert field medical badge to ensure that it remains relevant, that it remains pertinent, and that it is up to date with the requirements for the Army. So I appreciate everyone's attention. I appreciate, once again, Sergeant Major Huff and the medical command team continuing to proliferate the importance of our badge of excellence. And from the home of Army medicine at Joint Base San Antonio and the Medical Center of Excellence, Army medicine starts here.
This panel, I think, really good information shared from each regional health command areas, even the recorded videos that we had and we shared. Really good information. Just, you know, I celebrate Army medicine as an alum of Army medicine, and of course working currently in Army medicine. Army medicine is always Army strong. The Surgeon General of the Army, Lieutenant General Dingle, celebrates and appreciates the information shared from every individual that participated in today's panel. And I just want to say one more time, thank you very much. Share away this podcast to anyone and everyone that you can. They don't have to necessarily even be affiliated with Army medicine. They could be of any branch, as long as we get the information out there so folks can track and understand the good things that we're doing in their individual commands. We will continually make Army medicine to be as Army strong. And I just want to say thank you again, gentlemen, and hang out in the broadcast room, and I'll get a chance to talk to you all individually as well. All right, and so in closing, celebrating today's discussion panel with these various command sergeants major from the various regional health commands, I want to say thank you for the information shared. And as I always say in closing,